my name is Katie, and I want to welcome you to my podcast, Smitten with Knittin'. And this is where I talk about knitting and other occasional creative adventures. Thank you so much for joining me, whether you're a returning viewer or new to the podcast. I appreciate your being here and hope that you find this episode enjoyable. I want to begin by apologizing for the lighting. I'm hoping that it's okay. We're in a sort of cloudy day. I suspect the skies may open at any moment, but I wanted to keep the light as natural as possible so that you'd be able to appreciate the colors and things that I show you. So I'm hoping that it works, but if it does get darker outside, I'm going to pause and turn the light on. I've also got to start this episode with a big shout out and thank you to my husband. He does not view the podcast, but in the rare event that he could, I have to thank him because I am now recording on my new iPad mini. I had been borrowing his for a number of episodes. Turns out my iPad 2 was just aged and it wasn't working very well, so I was using his, and he surprised me the last time I was podcasting. He actually was out getting me one, so thank you, Robert. I really appreciate the fact that he supports all of my fiber adventures. So today I've got a lot to share with you. It's probably been about a month since I podcasted last. I would honestly love to do this more frequently. It's just difficult with my schedule and other responsibilities, but it's still very important to me. So I'm glad that you're here. New things. Behind me is my yarn wall. As if you watched my last episode, I had mentioned that there was going to be a change in sort of my location, and it was going to be something exciting and related to fiber. So I'm still in my craft room, but this was a blank wall that I had, and after watching a couple of other podcasts and sort of seeing the setting that were behind others, I thought, how could I display my yarn in a way that's purposeful and useful for me, but that also wouldn't create a nice backdrop? So many thanks to my mom and my dad and my husband for their help. It was a multi-hand process, but we were able to use mug racks and turn them on their sides and display the yarn. So I'm really excited about that, especially because when you come up our stairs from the first floor, it kind of greets you right away. So really excited. Other than that, I think that's major sort of updates and shout outs that need to kick this off. I do want to remind you about about one knit along that I'm co-hosting with Sam from the Hand Me My Knitting podcast. Side note, if you haven't checked out Sam's podcast, I strongly encourage you to do so. She's awesome. She's really detail-oriented, very clear and articulate, and is a very active knitter. So she's really enjoyable, not only to watch, but also to partner with on this knit along. So the knit along is the Treat Yourself knit along, and that is in the spirit of Parks and Recreation. If you're not familiar, it's a TV show that I believe aired on I think it was NBC. It's no longer on the air, but is available through Netflix and other streaming sources. We both have an adoration for the show and decided to host a knit along in the spirit of that show, and that's where that Treat Yourself line comes from. There's lots of details up on both of our Ravelry pages. We both have a chatter thread and finished object thread posted. But the knit along itself began July 1st and runs through August 31st. So there's still time for you to participate. You could be a small project and you'd still be eligible to be part of the knit along. So I encourage you to check that out. Along that, or in that same vein, I was very fortunate to be contacted by Renee of She's So Whimsical on Etsy. Renee is a maker. So Renee has donated a project bag, which I think is just adorable. It's hot air balloons. How fun is that? With a polka dot interior, and it's actually a reversible bag. So let me just get it here. You can take it and pull the handles out both sides and use it on this polka dot as well. So that was very generous of Renee. Again, her business is She Is So Whimsical. Renee can be found on Etsy as well as on Instagram. But Renee, along with this bag, which is wonderful because the size of it just allows for like a medium project, so it could hold multiple hanks or multiple skeins, she also donated some fiber from her stash. So the winner of the Treat Yourself knit along that posts in my FO thread and is randomly selected will receive this bag, but they will also receive a skein of Sweet Georgia in the Tough Love sock. This is an 80-20 merino nylon blend, and it's in the colorway of raspberry. So it matches nicely actually with the pink hot air balloon. So thank you so much, Renee, for your generous donation. I'm really happy to be able to support your creative initiatives, and I'm grateful for your support of mine. So I know that's going to go to one lucky winner in a very special home. Along that same vein, I wanted to share with you that I am going to be hosting a knit along, and I'm going to post all the details on my Ravelry page, but I want to give you a little bit of background on some of those details now as well. When I was a young girl, my mom, I think I was in around second grade, so probably around 8 or 9 years old, my mom purchased for my birthday Anne of Green Gables, the video series, and then she followed it up, I believe, at that Christmas with Anne of Avonlea, and a dear friend of hers purchased the Anne of Green Gables book for me for my birthday. So it was a sort of Anne of Green Gables themed birthday and Christmas. And my birthday is exactly a month before Christmas, so not too much time in between. And I became enamored with it. I fell in love. As a young child, I had an earnest love for reading, writing, all things literature. I had a pretty expanded vocabulary according to my parents, and I just felt a connection with Anne and her use of language and her creativity and imagination. Fast forward a number of years, and I found or discovered that on Netflix they've brought back Anne of Green Gables. However, they've done so in a TV series sort of setup, so it's not just a two episode situation where they've really kind of played out her life a bit more, and some of the details that are evident in the TV series are not part of the actual novel or previously filmed pieces. But it got me to thinking about, again, my childhood, Anne of Green Gables, the beauty of Prince Edward Island. I've always wanted to visit there, and I still have yet to do so. I'm putting that on my travel bucket list. But I wanted to host, I thought it could be fun to host a knit along in the spirit of Anne of Green Gables. So I'm calling this the Anne with an E knit along. If you're familiar with Anne of Green Gables, you'll understand the title. If not, a quick Google search will inform you. So Anne with an E is going to be a knit along, and it's going to give you a couple of options for participation. You're welcome to participate by utilizing a green series of colorways, any range of green. That goes in the spirit of her having her green eyes, and also being at Green Gables. You could use fiber from Prince Edward Island. Perhaps it is locally sourced in Prince Edward Island, or purchased at a local yarn store there. You could also use a pattern that references a part of the book and the series. So for example, Anne wishes that her name was Cordelia. If you find a pattern with its named Cordelia, that would be an eligible entry. And there's certainly lots of references throughout the show that I think you could find a good fit. Also, if you happen to find a pattern that is from a maker on Prince Edward Island, that would be eligible as well. So a couple different options for choosing, but this knit along is going to begin August 15th and it will end September 30th. So that'll hopefully give you enough time to find a pattern, find some fiber, get started. I will post a chatter and finished objects thread on Ravelry, and the hashtag that we will use on social media will be Anne with EKAL, and I'll post that on the screen below. So I hope that you'll consider joining me. I've thought I had a project in mind, but now that I'm looking at the wall behind me, if I lean, you can see there's definitely some green hanging out. So I'm not even sure what I'm going to work on quite yet, but I'm looking forward to hosting another knit along and seeing what everybody makes. So stay tuned for more updates on that. All right, I'm looking at my notes, and it's a good thing I wrote notes because I have a lot to share with you, or it feels like I have a lot to share with you. Let's see. Oh, okay. Life since I last recorded has been full. We are now officially in August, which for me means pretty full days at work. August, I work in higher education, so August is a busy month with students getting all their last minute details in check to be able to begin the semester. So it's a full day time of year, but it's also a very fulfilling time of year, helping students get started in college or continue to pursue their academics. One thing that I want to share with you, if you're not familiar with it, is called Fiber Share. I am participating again this cycle. My first cycle of participation was in February and March of 2017. I'll put the information in the show notes, which again can always be found on Ravelry. FiberShare is an opportunity to sign up, share some information about yourself as a fiber lover, and in return you are given somebody to send a package of fiber goods to, and then somebody sends a package to you. Honestly, for me, that's kind of how I started getting into this whole podcast groove. I was fortunate to be the recipient of Diary of a Yarn Snob, Julie, a package from her. And so I had a great experience being a recipient, but I also really, really enjoyed putting together a package for the individual that was assigned to me. I was able to kind of give her a whirlwind tour of New England with everything I selected. So again, I'll put the information up on Ravelry. I strongly encourage you, if you're interested, to participate. It is a little bit of a commitment because you do need to put together the package and mail it. But I just found it an amazing opportunity to start building and further expanding my network here in the world of knitting and fiber. This time, I'm actually going to do it internationally. You have the option of determining whether or not you want to do a domestic swap or international swap. And they do their best to match you up. You don't always get what you ask for, so to speak. It depends on who else signs up for the swap. But I thought it would be really cool to try to do a swap with individuals that don't live here in the U.S., just to see what they have to offer from their home country and their travels, and to be able to share a little bit of my experience with them. So really excited about that, and really encourage you to think about participating if time and funds allow. It's certainly not too expensive an adventure, but certainly you have to do what's comfortable for you. The last update I have is one that I never thought I would have as an update. And it's simply because I think I am harder on myself than probably anybody else that I know is. I had really thought when I started my blog a long time ago that I would have a lot of interaction. Most of the comments that came through on the blog were spam comments. I took some time away from the blog. I started podcasting. I didn't know what to expect with podcasting, but I now have over 50 subscribers on YouTube, which I certainly would love to expand that. So if you're not a subscriber, consider doing so, please. I would certainly appreciate it. And I started the group on Ravelry, and certainly people are slowly joining that. And so I no expectations, didn't know what to kind of gauge as far as numbers of participants, but I didn't think I was doing anything particularly special. There are amazing podcasters, amazing bloggers, and here I am just in my little corner of Massachusetts knitting away and sharing, and in some cases rambling on. But it turns out I do have something to offer. And I got an email from one of the media representatives at loveknitting.com. Love Knitting is a very useful resource for people who are interested in fiber and knitting in particular. There is a Love Crochet website as well. You can buy yarn there, you can buy patterns, you can get advice and tips. Not quite the same as Craftsy, it sort of offers a little bit different spin on things. But anyways, long story short, they contacted me. They found my blog and podcast and really wanted to further, to see if there was an opportunity to partner. And to be completely honest, I initially thought the email was spam. I shared it with my husband and I was like, this has got to be a joke. Turns out, after a little bit of my own research and edification, that it was not a joke. It was truly a serious offer, or extension of an offer to partner. And I'm going to be receiving a package of yarn from Love Knitting. They are it's actually en route. It should arrive any day now. And my charge is to try out some of their yarn within a new project and share that with you, my viewers. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm very humbled that I would even be on anybody's radar at that level. I know it's certainly an opportunity for them too, as far as marketing and expanding their line and what they have to offer. So yeah, stay tuned for some probably, hopefully, very cool stuff in a future podcast. Okay, that's a lot of updates. I'm sorry, I'm blathering on here. Let's get into It's All About the Yarn. Okay. So, one of the weekends in July, my husband and I took a trip up to Boston, which for us is only about a 50 to 60-minute drive. It's not too difficult to get there. And I did live in the city for 2 years while I was in graduate school, so I know my way around fairly well. So we went up there, and we actually ended up heading up to Harvard Square so that we could spend more time on the Cambridge side of the river. And we had a great time wandering through all the bookstores and little shops that are in Harvard Square. But before we left, we did head back into Boston to the North End, which for those of you who aren't familiar with Boston, or specifically its North End, it tends to be historically the Italian neighborhood in the city. Right before you get to the North End, there's this location called Haymarket. And on the weekends, Haymarket is an open air market. You see hundreds, thousands of people come and get fresh produce, etc. But there's also recently created, it's called the Boston Public Market, which is an enclosed space that offers produce and other food goods throughout the year. And in that market, there is a stall dedicated completely to fiber, and it's called the New England Farm to Fiber stall. And New England Farm to Fiber, I hope I have my information correct. I should have double checked it before podcasting, but I'll make sure it's accurate in my notes, is the brainchild of a number of farmers in New England, as well as a woman who owns a local yarn store, I believe in Jamaica Plain. So these are the fibers that are available are sourced directly here in New England. They are not dyed, they are just natural fibers that are available for knitting. And I had purchased some yarn from the stall before, right around the holidays, and you'll see some more of that when I get to my Katie's Closet segment. But I couldn't go to the stall and not purchase some more local fiber. So, excuse me for 1 second here. I picked up, this is from Savage Heart Farm, and it's a farm in Vermont. It is a blend of Corriedale and Cormo, and it's in its natural color. They consider this color deep gray, and it does have a hue of brown in it. Again, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to fully appreciate the color simply because of the lighting. Let me see if this... Yeah, I think you can see it. I wish you could feel it, to be quite honest. It is just so squishy and soft. This is a DK weight, and it's certainly, because it is 100% wool and it's its natural color, it's a hand wash situation, and certainly to be dried flat. But there's some of the little sheepies. So really, again, happy to have this. And what I love about natural wool too is you can still feel the lanolin in it. I know some people unfortunately have an allergy to that. I'm so grateful that I don't, because I just love the squishiness and the feel of it. And it's actually, for being a natural fiber, still very, very soft and not itchy like a lot of people often associate with farm unprocessed fiber. The other really cool thing is that they now have enamel pins. So I picked myself up an enamel pin from their stall as well, and that will adorn my bag. And I'll show you when I get through my FOs and whips, my bag where I hold all my projects and the pins I have on there. So this little goodie's going to go there as well. So that was pretty exciting. The goal of the day was not to buy yarn, but I kind of made it my priority when we got into Haymarket area. The next find is courtesy of Instagram, and as I frequently have said, Instagram is the reason my bank account suffers. There are so many beautiful fibers, and I'm sure there's other hobbies and interests that you can find on Instagram if you follow the right people and the right hashtags. But if you look at my thread, it's consistently, or my feed, it's consistently yarn, and it's consistently really hard to not purchase everything I see. But this one came to me, or hit a sentimental chord for me. So I follow Mater Root Maine on Instagram, and I've shared before in one of my previous podcasts a bag that I had purchased from them as a little project bag. Well, through their posting or in their feed, they shared about this little business along the coast of Maine called Homespun Girls. And actually, the image kind of reminds me of Anne of Green Gables, ironically. They are out of Bucks Harbor, Maine, and are designers and owners of a farm and fiber So what drew me to what I'm about to show you is that it is the sock weight yarn. It's 430 yards. It's a 2080 wool nylon blend, but it's single ply, which is not something I've commonly seen, a single ply that has that nylon in it to make socks. I had to purchase this skein of yarn. The colorway is saltwater taffy. And if you're not familiar with New England, taffy's a pretty big staple when it comes to sweet tooth indulgence. Here in Massachusetts, Cape Cod has a lot of shops that offer taffy, but along the coast of Maine, saltwater taffy is big as well, and that's the difference, it's saltwater taffy. I remember going to Maine as a young girl, and even as an adult here in Massachusetts, and getting saltwater taffy. And so I just thought the name of the colorway was fun. The fact that it was a single ply sock was really exciting. And it still has that, I don't know the edge is the right word to describe it, but I can still sort of feel the farm in it. It's certainly soft, and I can tell it's going to make a sturdy sock. But it's not super squishy. And I like that. I like that it kind of, it's as though you were, back in colonial times, I guess. Knitting, certainly they didn't have these kinds of dyes at that point, but, they sheared the sheep, they carded the wool, they spun it, they knit. And I like that feel. So I'm really looking forward to knitting up a warm pair of socks with that. The other thing that I absolutely love is this little package came with it. She included a little tee, but then another little pin. I'm like on a pin palooza here lately. Of the little homespun girl. Sorry for the reflection there. I don't know if you can see it with the light. But anyways, I just thought that was a really sweet touch. It's all about the packaging, so to speak. So anyways, really happy to have that as part of my stash. And the last, oh no, that's a lie. This is not the last item. Another item that's new to my stash also came from Renee of She Is So Whimsical. Renee was so generous to donate to the Treat Yourself Knit Along for a prize, but she also included a bag from me. And I really enjoy birds and nature in general, but just the colors in this bag were just so lovely, and I love that there are birds on the inside as well. One's got glasses, it's so cute. Her fabric choice truly is whimsical, so I'm really excited and proud to be an owner of one of Renee's bags as well. So that about sums up my acquisitions for this episode. No, again, I lied. I need to focus. Something else that I came along, courtesy of Instagram, was a maker who makes stitch markers. And I checked out her Etsy page and found that many of her stitch markers are made from natural stone, but some of them are made from little seashells. And living near the water, I thought I've got to snag myself a set of those. I actually purchased one for my mom as well. These little stitch markers are user-friendly for both knitting and crochet. I don't know if the camera's blowing them out a little bit. That's too close. I don't know if it'll readjust. You can use these as progress keepers, or you could use them as stitch markers in knitting. They'll fit up to a size 6. She has multiple sizes available. And I apologize that I don't recall her name. I'll make sure that ends up in the show notes as well. But I thought these were just really sweet. So they are now part of my stash as well. And honestly, they're so cute. I want to use them, but part of me wants to save them because I'm sure they would make a lovely gift. But you really should check out Cabin Fiber Company on Etsy. Some really great products available and that are clearly done with care and with love. All right. Actually, you know what? I'm looking at my notes here. And before I move on to my finished objects and whips, I want to share something else with you that is an acquisition, but it's not an acquisition for me. And I actually should have mentioned it when I was talking about my Anne with an E knit along. So if you're a returning viewer, you may have watched my episode where I talk about sock blanks. And I talk about Suzanne Suzanne who's behind Zanie's Crafts. Suzanne is knows my aunt and my mom. She's met my mom briefly through a collaboration not a collaboration, from an event that my mom was at with my aunt. Sorry. My aunt, who's the fiber artist out in Buffalo. Anyways, long story short, I purchased a sock blank from Suzanne, knit it up, and have shared with you actually my finished object, and you can see them in my projects page on Ravelry. I ordered another sock blank from Suzanne, and I ended up actually gifting it to my Auntie Judy, my mom's friend who lives down the street, who is an avid knitter, because she wasn't familiar with the sock blank. She'd never heard about them, and it just sort of intrigued her, and I thought that would be a really nice gift for her, and I knew she would appreciate it and certainly use it. Suzanne was so generous that she reached out to me and asked me if I would like another sock blank to be able to use for a giveaway. And so what I'm about to show you is one of Suzanne's hand-dyed sock blanks, and this will be the prize for the Anne with an E cal. Just to give you a quick snapshot, this is Suzanne's card, and whomever is the prize winner, I'll include this with the prize. This is the sock blank rolled up, but I am going to untie it so all viewers can appreciate its beauty. Suzanne's work is just lovely. She is so talented. But if you participate in that knit along, you have the opportunity to be the lucky winner of this sock blank. And so, I mean, the colors are just fantastic. And what I love is if you do like knitting socks, because they are similar on both sides, you would be able to get similar striping on the socks or similar color patterning. But Suzanne puts a line of her own fiber through the end so it doesn't unravel on both ends. And then you can start to actually create your sock, unravel your sock blank if you so choose to knit it that way on the other end. So all that to say, there's going to be some lucky winner out there. Suzanne, I am so grateful and so appreciative of your generosity. And I can't wait to be able to send this along to that knit along recipient. And I promise I will repackage it just as lovely as you had. Okay. Now we're done with acquisitions and updates, and I will get my act together, I promise. Okay. Finish objects. I've been busy, and I didn't realize, I felt like I hadn't really made progress with anything until I was pulling everything together before podcasting, and then realized, no, Katie, you've actually done a lot. So the last time I shared with you what I referred to as a hoe, which sounds totally inappropriate, but I consider that a half object, meaning I had just about finished it, but it wasn't quite there. I am proud to announce it is now upgraded from a hoe to a faux, a nice finished object, and those are my Maze fingerless gloves. This is a pattern, a free pattern by Tin Can Knits. This is knit up in Malabrigo Rios, their Tormenta colorway. They have not yet been blocked. These are actually a gift for my husband for Christmas, so I need him to kind of leave the premises, so to speak. He has no idea that they're for him. He's actually tried them on. I was like, hey, check out these neat mitts I made for myself. He will not remember that I even made them, let alone that I said I made them for myself. So come Christmas, he'll be surprised. They fit me, but they are a little bit loose. So I'm looking forward to blocking them because I know that they fit him now, but with blocking them, they'll have a little bit more comfort for him. So I'm just really proud of myself. I had never knit a mitten, which there in the pattern you can turn this into a mitten. I just knew for him a fingerless glove was more appropriate. I hadn't done a thumb and a gusset, but I thought to myself, well, Katie, you've turned a heel on socks many a time, you can handle this. And it really wasn't difficult at all, but I'm just really thrilled with how it turned out, particularly because they match so nicely with the barley hat that I had knit up for him. And this is also from Tin Can Knits. It's the same Malabrigo colorway of Tormenta. But having the garter and the stockinette, I think it's a really handsome combination. And I look forward to making more. The beauty with Tin Can Knits patterns is that they are sized for baby through large adult. So there is a lot of flexibility, and honestly, I could see myself making a matching set for me. Or I actually had my dad try them on. I think I might make a pair for my dad for Christmas. So we'll see. But they're a nice quick knit too, because I did do them magic loop style, but it's a worsted weight yarn, so the stitches are fairly large. In that same set of patterns from Tin Can Knits, I think it's called their Simple Knits collection, they have a sock pattern, and it's referred to as their rye pattern, and that's the other piece for me, the maize, the barley, the rye, the names of these patterns, all in some way have a connection to beer, which my husband adores. So I don't know if he'll fully appreciate that connection because it was completely unintentional on my part, but I was pretty excited about it. So I saw the socks and I thought, oh, he could use a good pair of socks on the cold winter nights when he comes home from work and changes, or when we have to do the dreaded shoveling and snow blowing that New Englanders just adore with the first snow. And then by it's like the 8th snow, we're done with it. Anyways, so I looked for a worsted weight yarn that had nylon in it because the socks take a little bit of a beating and nylon is a good component to have in them. I thought to myself, I could use Barocco Vintage, for example, that has a nylon component to it. But Knit Picks actually happened to be having a sale, and they had this colorway that I just loved. This is their Felici worsted in Baker Street, and let me expand it. I don't have them on blockers yet because I don't have blockers big enough for my husband's foot, so I need to order some. The man has big feet. I just loved the colors. You can see sort of that tonality right here. Between this gray and this like khaki, but then the browns and the blues and the whites, loved it. I'm very pleased with how these knit up. The one thing I'm disappointed about is because I chose self-striping, and honestly I was just looking for a worsted with nylon. Sometimes in the pattern changes, because it's a row, when you're doing the garter stitch you have a row of knit and then a row of purl. You can see that the transitions are a little funky. He won't care in the slightest, but that's something I just mental note for the future as a recommendation to those of you who might be considering the pattern. You may want to go with a solid or a tonal type yarn rather than a self-striping, just because you run the risk of getting those lines. I did order 2 balls of the yarn. It was also on sale, so it was a good deal, so I can knit them 2 at a time, magic loop style. I did for these do the traditional heel flap and gusset. That's what the pattern calls for. I thought about doing a mitered heel, but I felt like he might benefit from the extra support that the heel flap and gusset offers. And their directions for all their patterns are just wonderful. You don't have to question whether or not you're doing it correctly. They're very, very clear. So I've already got 3 presents for Christmas for my husband, and it's only August 5th. I'm really impressed with myself. There is a sweater that would look so handsome with the hat and the fingerless gloves and even the socks. I just don't know that I can commit to this sweater and get it done because, yeah, I've got a lot of knitting plans. So we'll see. Maybe that'll be next. Maybe I'll start it now for next Christmas. That's probably overly ambitious, but I am a planner, so I'll have to consider that more thoroughly. I'm also very excited to share that I have finished my own Treat Yourself Knit Along knit. Of course, I'm not going to put myself in the entry. I just cast off on this last night. This is the Topography Kerchief by Melissa Stajata. This is knit up in Toil and Trouble, which is a local indie dyer here in Salem, Massachusetts. It is the sonnet base, and the colorway is Red Sky in the Morning, which is a tween young adult novel. It's not one that I'm familiar with, but honestly, after seeing the colors in this, I kind of want to read the book just to see where they better understand the inspiration. This is, or has not yet been blocked. It literally, again, cast off last night. Couldn't wait to share it with you. You can see I still even have the yarn tails. I tend not to weave my tails in until after I've blocked, just in case there's any movement. I don't want to have cut them too short to not be able to get them in between the stitches. Full disclosure, I'm looking at this. Okay, first of all, I love it. I just adore the color. They are my favorites. Well, I can't say they're my favorites because I don't really have a favorite color. They are some of my favorites. I'm obsessed with color, so having a favorite's difficult. But anyways, focus, Katie, focus. I'm thrilled with how it turned out. I'm just a little disappointed in myself. When you're supposed to weigh your yarn as you get through the pattern, and when you get to about 50%, that's when the pattern tells you to start working on the border, so that you make sure you have enough yarn. I had weighed my yarn, and based on the couple of rows I had done, I thought, okay, I'm probably at the 50% mark. And I didn't double check. And I do have a scale, so I should have. It was just pure laziness and probably pure eagerness to just keep knitting. Full disclosure there. Anyways, I did have a bit extra left over, which is okay. I'd rather have extra than be playing a serious game of yarn chicken. But I also know too that this is going to stretch. You can see just here, I haven't even blocked it yet, how much it grows. And it is stockinette, and then there's a garter along the bottom. So of course I'm not going to stretch the garter out like that, but there's some give to it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what it's like blocked up, but I'm very, very pleased with it. When it's blocked, I know again that it will have more length. So these tails will come down further, but it'll be a nice wear for the winter, and certainly, or even a chilly fall or spring day. And then it can also just simply go over the shoulders. Suspect if I try it this way too, I have some shawl pins that I could use with it. So it's got versatility, I guess is what I'm getting at. So yes, very, very happy with the outcome. Lesson learned and paying attention to the directions, or getting off my butt and weighing something, or weighing the yarn rather. But it's a pattern I would definitely recommend. And this fiber is just scrumptious. I mean, you can just see the squish in it. Highly recommend Toil and Trouble as well. So that is pretty much what I have finished. As far as my works in progress go, I had bought yarn probably March, an alpaca blend to make my mother-in-law something for Christmas, and I have finally decided on a pattern. I have caked all of the yarn, so I will be casting that on shortly. I'm going to be casting on for my Anne with an E knit along, and I also need to get a pair of socks on the needles. Once I bound off or did the Kitchener on the toes of the ones for my hubby, I was like, okay, time for another pair of socks. So those are coming as well. But for what I actually have as a whip, I've been working slowly on my Jessie's Girl, and that is a pattern by Elizabeth Smith, and this is being knit up in a Barocco cotton DK. It really doesn't look like I've made much progress, but this is just a lot of garter in the round. I have about, 28 more rounds to do before I get to start splitting for the sleeves. It is a t-shirt, like a light summer t-shirt pullover. My goal was to have this done by the time my husband and I head to Europe, the second week of September. I'm going to continue to try to reach that goal, but I'm not going to put any pressure on myself, because if I don't make it, I don't make it. Knitting is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be stress-free and relaxing. So if I don't finish it for this summer, there's always next summer. I actually brought it with me. We went to a local brewery called Buzzards Bay Brewery in Westport, Mass, which is just a couple towns over. And we were celebrating my husband's birthday. And so I was like, you know what, if we're going to go have some beers, I'm going to bring my knitting with me. And fortunately, I live in a community where nobody would question that. You know, they embrace people who are artistic and or have talents or interests in that regard. So we sat at the brewery, tried some of their beer. And from there, I just knit. So, yeah, places you can knit just about anywhere. The other work in progress that I have is my Find Your Fade. And I have to be completely honest. If you are new to this podcast, you might think I've actually made some progress. If you've been watching me since episode 1 or 2 when I started it, you're going to realize I have done nothing to it. I don't know. It's not that I don't like the pattern or that I don't like where I'm going with it so far. It's just that I think I've faded on my fade. And this for me is one where if I'm in the lace part, I have to pay attention. It's not a completely mindless knit. And I think that's what I've been struggling with, is that long days at the office, coming home, taking care of life. By the time I get to sit with my needles, I need something where I can just soothly knit and move along while watching some Netflix. So honestly, and this may sound crazy, maybe I'll bring this on the plane with me. We have an 8 or 9 hour flight to get to Europe. My husband's convinced he's just going to take NyQuil and be fine, but I was planning on really knitting a lot, so that might be the actual opportunity for me. I'm glad I thought of that right now. But those 2 projects, again, making progress on them as best I can, but all my projects, when I'm working on them, live in my fringe supply company Woolallooya bag. This was a gift to me from my husband for Christmas. It is absolutely amazing what you can fit in here. I still have a couple more, a novelty bag. I have my stitch holders. But what I've started here is my little collection of pins. So, of course, I've showed you some that I'm going to be adding. This Buffalo here is from an organization in Buffalo, New York that helps refugees gain skills sets to help them be able to be self-sufficient here in the United States. And they make these pins, and they make a number of other things. It's called Stitch Buffalo. I encourage you to check it out. Again, definitely put that in my show notes. This nerd pin and this pedestrian with yarn, those are both from my husband for Easter one year. This is Diary of a Yarn Snob, so Julie included that with her fiber share package. Robert bought me this I Knit little monster at a store called Craftland in Providence, Rhode Island. And then this Knit What You Love pin came from an order of UU yarns. If you're not familiar with UU yarns, they are beautiful colors. So yeah, I'm starting a pin collection. I don't have that many enamels, but that's okay. Pins are pins, they're swag. And I enjoy being able to share my journeys, where I've gotten them from. So moving along, because I can see already that we're at like 41 minutes, which means I'm getting really long-winded. I want to share a little bit with you from my closet. So, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, there is that fiber stall in the Boston Public Market, the New England Farm to Fiber. When I purchased yarn the first time from there, I purchased yarn from what is called Greenwood Hill Farm. And I have the tag. I didn't think to bring it up in time for the podcast. But it was, again, a natural fiber, a worsted weight. I purchased this simple, natural ivory color. And I just knit it up in a seed stitch. I adore this cowl. It was a selfish knit, and it was good timing. I knit it up in winter. So it's always, snuggly warm is always appreciated and needed. This cowl has been blocked, so it has gone through a little bit of a fiber wash, but it still has that like natural farm smell. Not, and this is gonna sound weird, but not that like gross cow poop kind of farm smell, but like the scent of flowers and vegetation, that kind of farm smell. And you can still feel the lanolin in it as well. So I highly recommend checking out, or testing out naturally sourced fiber that has just been minimally processed. There's just something so organic about it, for lack of a better way to describe it. The other item I'd love to share, or I'm going to share with you, I love it, but I'd love to share with you too, is a silk scarf that has been dyed by my aunt. Her name is Monica White. She is Buffalo Snow on Instagram and on Ravelry. This piece is one that my mom actually picked up for me last year when they were at the show together. You can just see her little tag at the bottom. This scarf is just so soft and drapey, and it's great for the summer because of its lightweight feel to it, and the colors are just so rich. So that's another item that I adore and cherish, and also love wearing because it gives me a chance to share with others who may ask where it came from. And last but certainly not least is kind of a fun one. When I was getting everything else out today, I thought to myself, oh, this is worth sharing. So this is a finger knit scarf. This finger knit scarf is one that my mom made, and I'm completely honest, I don't know the exact fiber, but I believe she may have gotten it, might be Lion brand. You can see it's kind of it's two together. It's this sort of single, and then this other sort of fun designer yarn. She hand knit it, and it is a lovely and warm cowl. I share this because I want people to know that you can enjoy fibers even if you are just getting started. You don't have to have a series of needles and a gazillion patterns to be a knitter. Even the simplest scarf can bring somebody so much joy and comfort. And the fiber, it's not the most expensive fiber. It's not a cashmere. It's not an alpaca, but it's still soft, and it's still something that can be worn. So I encourage others to know that, yes, myself and many others may show a wide variety. Know that no matter what, you are welcome in our community, regardless of whether or not you knit with the most expensive yarn or the most expensive equipment. It's about being a knitter, and that's what's important. Okay, so last but not least, I normally would do a local love segment, but I actually am not going to do one today because I've shared with you a lot of that local love already with the 2 fibers that were part of my acquisitions. So this is my shout out to my local love as well. But I will certainly continue to share with you other goods from the region as I find and discover them. That pretty much sums up my knitting in life these days. I won't blather on too much more. I do encourage you, if you are into reading, to check out this newer book by Ann Hood. I mentioned her in my local love, I think the last episode or the episode before. What I really enjoy about this book is that it's writers who are writing about knitting. And there are some pretty notable writers in here. One of them, who I absolutely adore, is Jodi Picoult, who did My Sister's Keeper. You may recall that being turned into a movie a couple years ago. She is actually from New Hampshire herself, and I've read many of her works, so she does an entry in here too. But it's a nice read, particularly because it's each writer does a little chapter, so it's something you can pick up and put down without really losing a place in it. So I encourage you to consider looking into that. Otherwise, my knitting pretty much takes place with my pug snuggled on my lap, and we're usually watching a little bit of Netflix, a little bit of Netflix and chill or Netflix and knit. Lately, Robert and I have been into, we watched Twin Peaks. That came out when we were both younger. He's a little bit older than I am, so he probably could have watched it. I don't know. My parents were very open-minded and liberal, but it's probably one that they wouldn't have encouraged me to watch at such a young age. So it's kind of fun to watch it as an adult and see and reflect back to everything that was happening in the 90s, so to speak, and it's when it comes to TV and technology. And we're also indulging in a little bit of Madame Secretary, which we both really enjoy. So my goal is to podcast at the end of August, early September, perhaps Labor Day weekend, because I want to be able to announce the Treat Yourself Knit Along winner and also share with you my plans for vacation knitting. There's also a potential that I may be doing yoga this week with a friend at a goat farm, and they offer what's called goat yoga, so we'd be doing yoga with the goats. So should that happen, I feel like I need to share that experience with you. Otherwise, that's it for now. Thanks so much for tuning in, and please remember, if you're a creator or a maker and you'd like to share your work, I'd be happy to do so on this podcast. I love and adore and appreciate makers so much. They are throughout every facet of my life. So certainly, if you're interested, just contact me via Ravelry or Instagram, and hopefully we can collaborate. Otherwise, until next time, keep those needles moving. Take care.